Hi, I'm Kintia. Nice to meet you. And this is week one of my process of creating my first mini comic, Roach Girl.
I'm Kintia.
Before we dive into the process, I want to provide a little bit of context of what Roach Girl's about, as well as the context of the creation of this comic story. Roach Girl is about a girl that experiences body image issues and it manifests as roaches because everyone hates roaches, but roaches, like insecurities, are kind of inevitable. If you grew up with the background that I grew up in and you are in the tax bracket that I'm in, you definitely understand what I'm talking about. I used to live in an apartment that was infested with roaches. The roaches were there before the roaches were there when I moved in. I got it fumigated. I tried everything that I could, and the roaches were just there. They would not go away. And it was because of this that I had a deep insecurity around letting people into my home, letting people, spend time with me. So a lot of the time I was in that house, I was in that apartment alone and kind of just trying to kill all of the bugs that I saw. But this comic is how I coped with that. Essentially, Roach Girl is an amalgamation of my insecurity of when I lived in an apartment that was that was infested with cockroaches and there was nothing I could do about it. It encompasses a lot of my own insecurities and my experience with body image and dealing with cockroaches, literally. And with that newfound context, I hope that you are rooting for this comic to be created just as much as I am. And without further ado, let's get into day one slash day two. Moving into this project, the initial goal was to revise the story. I hadn't looked at this story in a few months, but the last thing I remembered about it was that I was not happy with how it ended. The biggest obstacle was my own neurodivergence. When my ideas pop up, they don't pop up in chronological order, they come up scrambled on top of they're also spaced out and not really all that clear when they pop up in my head. So it became really easy for me to become distracted and I knew that I'd forgotten the context of the story. I knew I was conscious of how much I had forgotten, but I didn't realize to the extent I had so much had happened that I had to refamiliarize myself with the story just so I could properly assess what changes I'd like to make. Afterwards, I found myself stuck in this. I was sort of floating in my brain, in my head, trying to figure out where do I go from here. After refamiliarizing myself with the story, I um I figured that setting an intention for the attitude that I would have moving forward during this project would really, I figured that would help me the most because then I would be able to focus more on the process and less on the idea of it. I also want to put emphasis on taking my time with this because this is more of a process to see where I get within a certain amount of time and less about being as productive as possible. With that mindset, I was able to ground myself a lot better, but with that problem solved, I had an even bigger challenge to face, and that was comic panel layout. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. Because of my first time trying to plan a panel layout, I had some anxiety about moving into this phase of the process. I understood its importance, but it was a real pain in the booty cheeks to deal with. But I did have a plan. And the plan was to sort of create a border so then I could staple everything at the end. I wanted to use the sketchbook to, plan out my comic layout. But the last time I tried to do a comic panel layout, it was really exhausting. It was really exhausting looking through a lot of the stuff and trying to figure out angles for certain scenes. Everything was going great. I had a proper plan. I was sticking to it. I was getting results. But then a hiccup happened. Can you guess what it was? I'm gonna give you a hint. It rhymes with period. My period came early. It literally came in and knocked me off my feet. I couldn't focus. I was down for an entire day. Like I couldn't do anything once it hit the first day. But we prevailed. I had my priorities straight. Your girlie is quite she's actually kind of uh heckin' flickin' a superhero when it comes to handling period pain with no pain medicine. Aside from the period thing, the next biggest obstacle I had was actually planning the panel layout. It was difficult because I had no reference for how to orchestrate a story through panels. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I struggled with figuring out how I was going to make everything fit on the page. But this go around, I had a secret weapon to assist me while working on the panel layout. So there would be a better outcome this time. It's a book called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. It's such a great book if you want to understand comic layouts and the different relationships between panels. If you want to understand the flow of comics, I essentially call it the Bible of making comics because of how helpful it is. It's such a great book if you want to understand panel layouts as it relates to visual storytelling within the comics medium. I highly suggest checking it out if you can. I also have the DC book, the DC book that was gifted to me by a professor, which I forever am so grateful for. I also suggest that as well if you can get your hands on it. The economy is so trash right now. Like if you're American and you can't afford to get the physical copy, that's fine. There are also digital copies of the Scott McCloud book online. If I can find them, I will actually link them down in the description box below. I believe that every person who wants to learn how to make comics should be able to have access to that book. By the end of this process, I had succeeded in creating a comic layout. I was very proud of myself, honestly. There's nothing more to that. All things considered, day 4 wasn't difficult because of all the work I'd done the days before. All things considered, day 4 wasn't too bad. Some of the words I had written for my script were a little weirdly worded, so it was difficult for me to draw what was what I had wrote. So ended up going back in and switching stuff around, adjusting letters, taking away some stuff, and taking a moment to reimagine what it was I was trying to convey in the story. I also was able to draw the first panel for the comic. I've drawn on and off, and I'm still warming up my hand again and retraining my eye to see perspective lines because I absolutely adore perspective drawing. And contrary to a lot of to popular belief when it comes to artists, I actually love drawing backgrounds. So that's my little quirk. It's what makes me different, you know? Yeah, I think it makes me different. I'm really proud of it. That's all I have for you for this week. As I reflect, I'm really proud of everything that I've done. Honestly, I can show you the finish piece. Give me a second. I don't know how well you can see it in the other clip, but I'm going to show it again. I am so proud of this. I can also show you the little thumbnail closer. You can get like a longer look at it. Just like breathing into the mic. Here's the other page. But yeah, I'm this process was it was great. I absolutely adore it. I've been wanting to do this for so long, and I'm just excited. I'm just happy that I'm actually doing it now, and I'm so excited to have you here with me while I go about it. If you would like to keep seeing my face, I will be I am on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at nymphian777. It should be somewhere on the screen. If not, it's definitely in the description box below. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully next week. Peachy Kane, Avril Lavigne, Peachy Kane.